I rounded the barn, and my boots froze in the dirt. My yard was swarming. 80 strangers, kids cannonballing into my pool, smoke curling from grills they'd hauled in. Who were they? How they claimed my farm like it was theirs. A blonde woman in red barked orders by the water, smirking like she owned it all. This is exactly HOA, Karen. What was coming next? Intrigued? Stay with me. The twists ahead are wild. If this pulls you in, could you drop me 19 likes? I'd be so grateful. From my heart. Thank you, let's jump in. The sun hung low over the sprawling fields of my farm, painting the sky in hues of amber and gold as it sank behind the distant tree line. I leaned against the porch railing, a cold beer sweating in my hand, listening to the crickets kick up their evening chorus. My little patch of land sat smack in the middle of nowhere, a rugged square of earth carved out by generations of stubborn farmers like me. Elmwood County used to be all rolling pastures and dusty ranches, the kind of place where you knew every soul by the sound of their truck. But that was before the city folks started trickling in, buying up plots, slapping down cookie-cutter houses, and turning my quiet nowhere into their noisy somewhere. Now, I was one of 5 holdouts, clinging to my farm like a barnacle on a sinking ship. What set my place apart wasn't the size. Hell, I didn't have one of the big spreads with fancy barns or herds of cattle. It was the pool, a modest rectangle of shimmering blue, maybe 20 feet long, tucked into a corner of the yard we'd never used much. My wife, Jenny, had begged for it years ago, her one dream amid the dirt and toil of farm life. "John," she'd said, eyes sparkling, "just imagine cooling off in the summer. Having folks over, it'll be our little luxury." I'd grumbled about the cost, but one look at her grin, and I was sold. So I said screw it, hired a crew, and built her that pool. It wasn't some Olympic-sized monstrosity, just big enough to swim a few strokes and splash around, but it turned out to be a godsend. Hot days out here hit like a furnace blast, and that pool became our oasis, a magnet for friends when we fired up the grill. I took a sip of my beer, watching the water catch the last rays of sunlight, rippling like liquid gold. Back then, I didn't give a damn about the newcomers or their fancy ideas. They'd rolled in with their SUVs and their cul-de-sacs, and with them came the homeowner association, some self-important club for the suburban crowd. I never paid them any mind. My farm wasn't part of their little kingdom, and I liked it that way. I lived here my whole life, raised on sweat and simplicity, and no HOA busybody was going to change that. They could pave their streets and plant their hedges. I keep my tractor rumbling and my fences standing, just as always. That Saturday started like any other. I've been out in the barn since dawn, tinkering with the old John Deere that coughed more than it ran. The air was thick with summer heat, the kind that sticks to your skin and begs for a cold dip. I figured I'd wrap up, grab Jenny, and spend the afternoon by the pool, maybe crack open a couple more beers and let the day drift away. But as I trudged back toward the house, wiping grease from my hands, a strange sound cut through the stillness. Laughter. Loud, raucous laughter, mixed with the sizzle of meat on a grill and the splash of water. My water. I rounded the barn, and my boots skidded to a halt in the dirt. My yard was swarming with people. Dozens of them, at least 80, sprawled across the grass like ants at a picnic. Kids shrieked as they cannonballed into my pool. Adults lounged on towels with drinks in hand, and smoke curled up from portable grills parked right on my property. I blinked, my brain scrambling to make sense of it. These weren't neighbors I knew, not the handful of farmers left around here. These were strangers, city types in bright polos and flip-flops, acting like they'd been handed an invitation. I stormed forward, heart pounding, and grabbed the first guy I saw, a lanky man in a Hawaiian shirt, flipping burgers by the pool. "What the hell's going on here?" I demanded, my voice rough as gravel. He turned, spatula in hand, and grinned like I was crashing his party. "Oh hey, HOA's throwing a bash, pool party for the members. Check it out." He fished a crumpled flyer from his pocket and thrust it at me. I snatched it, eyes scanning the cheap print. HOA Summer Pool Party, Saturday, Elmwood Farm location. My farm, my pool. No permission, no call, nothing. Who gave you the right to be here? I growled, crumpling the paper. He shrugged, pointing across the yard. Talk to her. She's the boss. I followed his gesture and saw her, a chubby white woman, mid-30s, with short blonde hair brushing her shoulders. She stood by the pool, arms crossed over a red tank top, barking orders like a drill sergeant. Lisa, I'd later learn, the HOA president with a chip on her shoulder and a gleam in her eye. She caught me staring, and her lips curled into a smug little smirk, like she'd already won something. I squared my shoulders, shoving the flyer into my pocket, and marched toward her. This wasn't just a party, this was an invasion, and I'd be damned if I let it stand. The air buzzed with the clamor of the uninvited crowd as I wove through the chaos toward Lisa, my boots kicking up dust with every determined step. The scent of grilled burgers and chlorine hung thick, a mockery of the farm's usual earthy stillness. Kids shrieked, diving into my pool with reckless abandon, their splashes soaking the patchy grass I'd spent years tending. Adults lounged on folding chairs they dragged in, sipping beers and laughing like this was their backyard. My backyard. My blood boiled hotter with every stranger's face, every unfamiliar voice echoing across land that wasn't theirs to claim. The flyer burned a hole in my pocket, its crumpled edges a tangible insult I couldn't shake. Lisa stood by the pool's edge, her red tank top stretched tight over her chubby frame, arms crossed like she was guarding a kingdom. Her short blonde hair caught the sunlight, framing a round face flushed with self-assured authority. She was mid-30s, I guessed, with fair skin dotted with freckles, and her stance screamed she'd never back down from a fight she'd started. As I approached, her blue eyes flicked toward me, narrowing slightly before that smug smirk crept back on her lips. She tilted her head, sizing me up like I was some pesky fly she could swat away. "Who the hell are you, and why are you on my land?" I demanded, stopping a few feet from her, my voice cutting through the din like a blade. The chatter around us dulled for a moment, heads turning, but Lisa didn't flinch. She uncrossed her arms, planting a hand on her hip, and let out a short, sharp laugh that grated on my nerves. "I'm Lisa, president of the Elmwood HOA," she said, her tone dripping with condescension, as if that title meant something to me. "We're hosting a party for our members, wonderful folks, by the way, and since you're not one of us, I'll need to ask you to leave." She waved a hand dismissively, like she was shooing a stray dog, then turned back to bark at a kid splashing too close to her. I stared, my jaw tightening so hard I could feel the strain in my neck. Leave? On my farm? The absurdity hit me like a punch, and I stepped closer, towering over her 5 feet 5 inches frame with my 5 feet 10 inches height. "You're trespassing," I said, voice low and steady, each word deliberate. "This is my property, my pool, my land, not some HOA playground. I don't give a damn who you think you are. You've got no right here. Get these people out now." Lisa spun back to face me, her smirk vanishing, replaced by a scowl that twisted her freckled features. "Oh, honey," she snapped, her voice rising. "This isn't your property anymore. This whole area falls under HOA jurisdiction now. New rules, new community. We got every right to host here, and that pool? It's a shared asset for our members." She gestured grandly at the crowd, as if her words could rewrite deeds and history. "If you got a problem, take it up with our lawyers. But if you show up waving threats or, God forbid, that shotgun I bet you've got stashed, I promise you'll rot in prison. We got the best legal team money can buy." Her threat landed like a spark on dry hay, and I felt my temper flare. I took another step, closing the gap, my shadow falling over her. "Jurisdiction?" I growled, incredulous. "This farm's been mine for decades, before your HOA even existed. You don't own a damn inch of it, and neither does your club. I'm telling you one more time, get off my land, or I'll have you all hauled out in cuffs." Her eyes widened, then narrowed into slits, a predator caught off guard but not backing down. "You're a real tough guy, huh?" she sneered, jabbing a finger in my chest. "Go ahead, call the cops, see who they side with. We're not going anywhere." The crowd hushed further, kids pausing mid-splash, adults craning necks. I could feel their stares, but my focus locked on Lisa, her defiance stoking the fire in my gut. I turned on my heel, storming back toward the house, every muscle taut with rage. Fine, I muttered under my breath, yanking my phone from my pocket. You want to fight? You got one. I dialed 911 as I crossed the threshold, slamming the screen door behind me. Yeah, I got trespassers. 80 of them on my farm, I barked to the dispatcher. They won't leave, and their ringleaders threatening me. Send someone fast. Through the window, I watched Lisa strut by the pool, rallying her crowd with exaggerated gestures, oblivious to the storm she'd unleashed. The cops here weren't city transplants. They were locals, born and bred, who knew this land was mine. I leaned against the counter, gripping my beer so tight the bottle creaked, waiting for the sirens. Lisa thought she'd won with her bluster and her lawyers, but she didn't know Elmwood or me. This was my line in the dirt, and I'd hold it come hell or high water. The hum of the refrigerator filled the kitchen as I stood by the window, peering out at the chaos still unfolding in my yard. The crowd had thinned slightly. Some kids climbed out of the pool, dripping and shivering, while a few adults packed up their grills, but most lingered, emboldened by Lisa's bravado. She paced near the water's edge, her red tank top a bold splash against the green grass, her short blonde hair bouncing with every sharp gesture. Her chubby frame swayed as she waved her arms, rallying her troops like a general on a battlefield she didn't own. The flyer's crumpled edges poked out of my pocket, a silent reminder of her gall, and my grip on the phone tightened as I waited for the dispatcher's promise to turn into action. Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the farm, the pool's surface glinting like a taunting mirror. I could still hear Lisa's voice cutting through the chatter, shrill, insistent, claiming my land as her HOA's playground. My land. The thought churned my stomach, a bitter mix of disbelief and fury. This wasn't just about a pool. It was about roots, about the life Jenny and I had carved out here, now trampled by strangers who'd never shoveled this dirt or sweated under this sun. I took a swig of my beer, the cold liquid doing little to cool the heat rising in my chest. Minutes dragged like hours, each splash and laugh in the yard stoking my impatience. Then a faint wail pierced the distance, sirens growing louder, closer. I straightened, setting the bottle down with a clink, and stepped onto the porch as two patrol cars rolled up the gravel drive, their lights flashing red and blue against the fading daylight. Dust swirled in their wake, settling as the engines cut off. Two officers climbed out, their boots crunching on the ground. Locals I recognized from town, men who'd grown up knowing Elmwood's lines as well as I did. Officer Tate, a wiry guy with a buzz cut and a no-nonsense squint, led the pair, his partner trailing behind. I met them at the edge of the yard, nodding as Tate tipped his hat. "John," he said, voice gruff but familiar. "Heard you got a trespassing problem." I jerked my thumb toward the crowd. 80 of them, camped out like it's a damn resort. That woman, Lisa, calls herself HOA president, says this is their land now. Invited all these folks to my pool. I told her to clear out. She threatened me with lawyers. I handed him the flyer. Its ink smudged, but legible. Tate scanned it, his brow furrowing, then passed it to his partner. Lisa spotted us, her pacing halting mid-step. She squared her shoulders, brushing her blonde hair back, and marched over, her round face flushed with defiance. "Officers," she called, her tone syrupy sweet but edged with venom. "This man's harassing us. This is an HOA event, our property, our rights. He's the one who needs to go." She planted herself between us and the pool, arms crossed, her red tank top straining as she puffed out her chest. Tate didn't blink. "Ma'am, step back," he said calm but firm. "We know this land, been John's for decades. HOA or not, you don't get to claim it." He turned to me. "You asked him to leave?" "Twice," I said, crossing my arms. She wouldn't budge, said I'd rot in jail if I pushed it. Lisa's eyes widened, then narrowed, her lips parting to protest, but Tate cut her off. "All right, folks," he bellowed, voice booming across the yard. "This is private property. You've been asked to leave. Pack up now or we start cuffing." The crowd froze, murmurs rippling through them. Kids scrambled out of the pool, Adults grabbed chairs, suddenly sheepish under the weight of the law. Lisa's face twisted, her freckles stark against her reddening skin. "This is our land," she shrieked, jabbing a finger at Tate. "I'll sue your whole department. Get off my property, or you'll regret it." Tate raised an eyebrow, unfazed. "We've got the deed records, ma'am. You've got nothing. Leave, or you're under arrest. Your call." Her mouth opened, then snapped shut, a fish out of water. She spun to her crowd, waving frantically. "Don't listen. They can't do this." But the tide had turned. People shuffled toward their cars, grills in tow, casting wary glances back. Tate nodded to his partner, who started herding them out. Lisa shot me a glare, her blue eyes burning with hate, a promise of retribution etched in every line of her face. "This isn't over," she hissed, low enough for only me to hear, before stomping off, her flip-flops slapping the dirt. I watched them go, the yard emptying as tires crunched gravel, sirens fading into the dusk. Tate clapped my shoulder. "Keep an eye out, she's trouble." I nodded, the weight of her look settling like a stone in my gut. The pool sat quiet now, water still, but peace felt fleeting. Lisa wasn't done. I could feel it in the air, thick as the dust still hanging around us. The days after the police cleared my yard stretched into an uneasy quiet, the kind that hums with the promise of trouble brewing just out of sight. The sun rose each morning over Elmwood County, bathing my farm in a warm glow that should have felt like home, but Lisa's parting glare clung to me like a burr on a sock. I'd wake to the crow of my old rooster, trudge out to check the fields, and end each evening by the pool, its still waters reflecting a sky I couldn't fully trust anymore. Jenny noticed it too. Her brow would crease as she watched me pace the porch, beer in hand, eyes scanning the horizon. "She's gone, John," she'd say, her voice soft but firm. "Let it go." But I couldn't. That woman's venom wasn't the kind that faded. It festered. I'd taken to checking the property more than usual, walking the fence line at dusk, kicking at loose posts to make sure they held. The pool sat there, a silent witness to the chaos, its blue surface tempting me to dive in and forget. But Lisa's words, "This isn't over," echoed in my head, a warning I couldn't shake. I'd lived here too long to ignore a gut feeling, and mine was screaming that she'd try something. The HOA might have backed off after the cops shut down their party, but Lisa? She wasn't the type to slink away with her tail between her legs. She'd want payback, and I'd be ready. It was a Tuesday afternoon, sticky with late summer heat, when it happened. I'd driven into town to grab feed from the co-op, leaving the farm empty for a couple hours. Jenny was at her sister's, planning some quilt project, and the fields were quiet save for the rustle of corn stalks in the breeze. I pulled back up the drive around the truck's tires crunching gravel, and caught a whiff of something sharp, acrid, wrong. Gasoline. My heart kicked up a notch as I killed the engine and stepped out, sniffing the air like a hound on a scent. It wasn't faint. It was thick, heavy, curling up from the direction of the pool. I bolted around the house, feed sacks forgotten, and stopped dead at the sight. The pool was a shimmering mess, its water streaked with oily rainbows, the filter gurgling as it choked on the mess. Gasoline fumes stung my eyes, pooling around the edges, soaking the grass in dark, wet patches. My stomach dropped. This wasn't an accident. I scanned the yard, half expecting to see Lisa standing there, match in hand, but it was empty, silent except for the hum of cicadas. Then I saw it, a trail of flattened grass leading from the pool to the fence, a path someone had trampled in a hurry. Rage surged, hot and fast, but fear chased it. Gasoline wasn't just vandalism. It was a bomb waiting to blow. I grabbed my phone, dialing 911 again, my voice tight as I barked, "Someone dumped gas in my pool. Whole damn yard reeks of it. Get the fire department out here, quick." The dispatcher's calm questions blurred as I hung up and ran to the barn, grabbing a hose. I dragged it back, cranking the spigot full blast, spraying water around the pool to dilute the mess. It wasn't enough. The fumes hung stubborn, a ticking threat. Sirens wailed in the distance, louder by the second, and soon a fire truck roared up the drive, followed by a patrol car. Firefighters in yellow gear spilled out, hoses unfurling as they shouted orders. Tate was there too, climbing out of the cruiser, his squint deepening as he took in the scene. "John, what the hell happened?" he asked, stepping over the hose. "Gasoline everywhere," I said, pointing at the pool. "Someone snuck in while I was gone. Bet you a cold one it's that HOA woman, Lisa." The firefighters worked fast, spraying foam over the pool, the white suds swallowing the oily sheen. One of them, a burly guy with a soot-streaked face, shook his head. "This much gas? Could have torched your whole place, crops, house, all of it. Lucky it didn't light." Tate rubbed his jaw, eyeing the trail to the fence. "Got proof?" he asked. I nodded, jerking my thumb toward the barn. "Security cam, old, grainy, but it's caught stuff before. Let's check." We trudged to the barn, the air still sharp with fumes, and I yanked the dusty monitor to life. The footage flickered, black and white, time-stamped an hour ago. There she was, Lisa, her chubby silhouette unmistakable, red tank top clinging to her as she hauled a gas can. Her short blonde hair swayed as she poured, her face twisted in a snarl, eyes darting like she knew she was on borrowed time. She lit a match, tossed it from a safe distance, and bolted as flames flared briefly before dying out. My fist clenched. "That's her," I growled. "Arson, destruction, nail her." Tate nodded, jaw tight. "Good enough for me. We'll pick her up." The firefighters doused the last of the threat, leaving the pool a foamy wreck. I stood there, staring at the ruined water, Lisa's vengeance seared into my mind. She tried to burn me out, over a damn pool, and nearly took everything with it. This wasn't just a fight anymore. It was war, and I'd end it. The acrid stench of gasoline lingered in the air long after the fire trucks rolled away, a bitter ghost haunting my farm. Night had fallen, draping Elmwood County in a heavy blanket of stars, but sleep was a stranger. I sat on the porch, a shotgun resting across my knees, not loaded, just a comfort, watching the pool's foamy wreckage glow faintly under the moon. The grass around it was scorched in patches, the filter a charred husk, and the fields beyond stood untouched by sheer luck. Jenny had come home, her face paling at the sight, but she'd squeezed my hand and whispered, "We'll fix it, John." Her strength steadied me, but inside, I was a furnace of fury, stoked by Lisa's madness. She tried to burn my world down, over a pool, and I'd make damn sure she paid. Morning broke with a gray drizzle, the kind that soaks through your bones. I drove into town, the security footage burned onto a thumb drive in my pocket, its grainy truth my weapon. The police station loomed ahead, a squat brick building flanked by the diner's neon buzz. Officer Tate met me inside, his buzz cut damp from the rain, his squint sharper than ever. "Got your call?" he said, ushering me to a cluttered desk. "Let's see it." I plugged in the drive, the screen flickering to life with Lisa's crime. Her chubby frame hauling the gas can, her short blonde hair whipping as she poured, her red tank top stark against the black and white feed. The match flared, flames danced briefly, and she fled, a coward's retreat caught clear as day. Tate leaned back, whistling low. "Arson, destruction of property, open and shut. We pick her up last night at her place, screaming about HOA rights the whole way in." He smirked, a rare crack in his gruff mask. "She's in a cell now, still ranting. You pressing charges?" I nodded, jaw tight. "Hell yes. She nearly torched my farm, my home. Nail her to the wall." Tate scribbled notes, then stood. "Good. We'll need your statement, but this footage? She's cooked." Days blurred into weeks as the legal gears ground forward. Lisa's arrest hit Elmwood like a thunderclap. Gossip buzzed at the co-op, old farmers nodding approval over coffee. She'd lawyered up, some slick city type the HOA bankrolled, and tried spinning her tale. The land was hers, I'd poisoned the pool with dangerous chemicals, and she'd saved the community by burning it. The judge, a grizzled local who'd fished these creeks as a kid, didn't buy it. Deeds don't lie, and mine was ironclad. The footage sealed her fate, her lies crumbling under its weight. She glared at me from the defendant's table, her freckled face pinched with hate, but I stared back, unyielding. Guilty, arson, vandalism, trespassing. Prison loomed, her HOA throne reduced to ash. But I wasn't done. That pool party, her fire, they'd scarred my land, my peace. I sued the HOA for damages, dragging Lisa's stunt into the light. The courtroom buzzed as I laid it out. 80 trespassers, her orders, the gas-soaked ruin. The HOA squirmed, their lawyers stammering about community spirit, but the judge saw through it. Misuse of power, he ruled, awarding me cash to drain the pool, replace the parts, test for safety. It wasn't cheap. Gasoline's a bastard to clean, but it wasn't enough. I pushed harder, petitioning to dissolve the HOA entirely. They'd crossed a line, weaponized their delusions against me, and I'd end them. The hearing was a circus, HOA members whining about their rights, Lisa's absence a gaping hole. My lawyer, a quiet guy with a farmer's drawl, laid out the case. Trespassing, arson, abuse of authority. The judge agreed. No unanimous consent could save them now. The gavel fell, disbanding the HOA. Their reign over Elmwood's newcomers snuffed out. Cheers erupted from the old-timers in the back, a rare win for the holdouts like me. Weeks later, the pool sparkled again, its water clear, the filter humming anew. Jenny swam beside me under a twilight sky, her laugh cutting through the stillness, a balm to the war I'd fought. The field stretched green and untouched, the farm whole once more. Lisa rotted in a cell, her HOA empire dust, and I'd outlasted her chaos. I floated on my back, staring at the stars, a grin tugging my lips. She'd lit the match, but I'd burned her world down, legally, ruthlessly, completely. Victory tasted sweeter than any beer, and damn, it felt good. Lisa's reign of chaos ended in cuffs. Her HOA crumbled, and John's farm stood tall. The pool sparkles again, a testament to resilience over entitlement. Thanks for riding this wild tale with me. Hope it hooked you as much as it fired me up to tell it. Here's the takeaway. Stand your ground when it's yours to defend, because no one's delusions can rewrite what's real. If you love this, drop a like, share your thoughts below, and stick around for more stories where justice punches back. See you next time.